Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually good morning to me. I was hoping to do this demonstration in front of you, where you are now. But unfortunately, because of reasons of health and safety, it was decided better to record it, which is what we're doing now, because otherwise the sprinkler systems and the fire alarm systems in the room that you're in now might go off and everybody would get wet, and that would be a pity. So while you're comfortably this morning sitting in your nice air-conditioned room behind me over there, learning all about listening or speaking, I should remember and I don't, I'm outside here cooking something for you. Because this is an AEC themed event, I decided it would be an idea to cook something from another AEC country. Believe me, I'm no professional cook, but I enjoy cooking. It's fun. I'm happy with cooking. And many years ago, a Dutchman introduced me to an Indonesian dish which he called Mie Goreng. Now, I've since discovered that it is generally by the Indonesians known as Mie Goreng, but you may well have figured out, because of its name, that it involves noodles, bakmi, and goreng in Indonesian simply means fried. So this is an Indonesian version of fried noodles, fried bakmi if you like. What are we going to use? Well, I'm going to be asking you after this to write a process paragraph rather than necessarily a recipe, so you don't need to worry too much about all of those precise details, but just for fun, let's go through and see what we are going to use. To start with, we're going to use some oil there, which is going to be sunflower oil. Ideally, peanut oil would be best, but unfortunately I can't find any peanut oil. Sunflower oil is very good, it's very slimming, you can eat or drink it as much as you like and you won't get fat, and it's good for your blood cholesterol level. We will then be using excuse me, one chopped up onion, an onion there, and I already have a chopped up onion there, like the best television chef. Here's one I made earlier. We're using some garlic, and again I have some chopped up garlic there. We are going to be using a chopped up chili. Now you know what a chili is, there's one right there. Also on this plate, which we'll come to later on, spring onion there, the Americans call it a scallion, and cucumber there, but they are used later on purely for garnish. We're going to fry the onions and the garlic and the chili together, just soften them, not to make them too brown or anything like that. And then we're going to add some of this stuff, which you know as gapi, but the Indonesians, and I believe the Malaysians, know it as trazi. It is basically a prawn paste. To me and my Falang ways, I think it smells and tastes disgusting. My apologies for that. If anybody is offended, I don't mean to. I have to admit that it does add a lovely flavor to the dish. So although the smell of it raw or cooking horrifies me, it is necessary for the dish and it adds a nice flavor. To that, we're going to add some pork, and here I have, for those of you who like numbers, about 200 grams of pork. This is Sanno in Pasatai, and I can't remember what that is in English, but I'm sure you'll be able to figure that one out. And also, if we can get rid of the flies, also about 100 grams of raw prawns there. They will go into the dish as well. While they're cooking, I will chop up some cabbage right here, and also some celery right here. This is Thai or Chinese celery. Again, a Falang would think of celery as being a long stick. You can use that if you like that as well. The flavor is very similar. The texture is different. If you like something crunchy, try Falang celery. But if you like it a bit more original, then this stuff is absolutely fine. When we've thrown all that lot together, we will of course be using the noodles themselves. The noodles I'm using here are simple bakmi. I bought them in Tesco Lotus yesterday. They are very familiar to you, I'm quite sure. You can use any noodles at all. This is one of those dishes where you can use almost anything you like. You don't need to use pork, you don't need to use prawns, you can use chicken, you can use any combination of ingredients that happens to fit your bill, that happens to appeal to you. The banh mi we'll get to a bit later on. They will be added to everything else, and then finally some salt and pepper. And here, for those of you who are numerically minded, I have 1 teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of ground pepper. You'll notice there's no fish sauce here. We're in the world of salt again rather than fish sauce. And inevitably, because it's Southeast Asia, some soy sauce will go in at the very end. Okay, just to finish the dish off, we will be decorating it with some cut up spring onions. It's interesting, leaves flying in there. Some spring onions, which we looked at earlier on. Americans call them scallions, and some sliced cucumber, and some fried onions. These fried onions you can buy yourself at the supermarket. I actually like to fry them myself, put them in deep frying oil very, very slowly for a long time. All you're actually doing is drying them rather than cooking them. The red stuff we'll get to a little bit later. Let's make a start. Let's put some oil into the pan and hope that everything is now warm enough. I see something, excuse me, a foreign object in there, now gone. Let's have some oil in the pan. This oil, as I say, does not make you fat, so why not use lots of it? It's good for you. It's good for your cholesterol. Oil in the pan, and then we throw in the onions and the chili and the garlic. The oil's not quite hot enough yet, but it will be very, very soon. The pan I'm using is an ordinary Western frying pan, which perhaps seems wrong. If I was at home, I would be using a traditional, more Chinese wok, and that's kind of more fun because it makes the right noise and you can throw things around inside it rather better than you can in a thing like this. But unfortunately, Chinese woks don't work on flat electric hobs, and so I have been forced into, excuse me while I take a leaf out, forced into using an ordinary frying pan here. While that is slowly getting to where it should go, a quick word about this rather strange red stuff over here. This is what they call a sambal in Indonesia. Sambal is literally just a side dish. This is a particular dish called sambal ulek. And it always strikes me as interesting that in nature, red seems to be the color of danger. And believe me, this is dangerous. This is basically just red chilies with a little bit of salt and a little bit of onion, all chopped up into a very, very fine paste. If you've got a blender, it works fine in a blender. Use it sparingly. Now, okay, I'm a Falang and I'm therefore not as used to hot food and chilies as perhaps you are, but even so, even if you are used to it, just take it easy to start with. Do it gently. We're still waiting for the onion to beef its way up. I'm just checking the water here is for the noodles later on. In an ideal world, perhaps we would have 2 hot plates here, and we would have an ordinary pan there with the hot water for the noodles. Strangely enough, my wife Linda and I went looking for another hot plate yesterday and couldn't find what we wanted, and Linda had the brilliant idea, a rice cooker. Why not? It does take a little bit of time to get there, but it gets there fine. I'm being given instructions from the left, and I don't know what the instructions are. Yes, okay, can we pause? Can we pause briefly? That's good. Just while this warms up. You're quite right. He's not pausing now. That's okay, don't worry. Okay, the onions and the chili and the garlic are now beginning to brown very slightly. The garlic is usually the one to go first, and that's fine because we don't want to burn anything, and the onions are nicely softened. So now we get down to adding this stuff here. This is where I start complaining because of the smell. About half a teaspoon, a third of a teaspoon of, oh, I can smell it already, of terasi, and just try and grind it into the paste there, but make sure it doesn't stick too much to the tools you use. And as it cooks, that delicate flavor, which is horrible, I can smell it right. Oh look, there's some stuck under there, and It does add, there is no doubt, it does add to the flavour of the dish. It's just that the raw substance as it cooks, I think, is dreadful. Now, while that's cooking, let us add the pork we have here. As I said earlier, sun nor, simply cubed, quite small cubes so that it'll cook quite quickly. You can see that there, look at that. And while we're at it, the shrimps as well. Shrimps, prawns, call them what you like. We can put them in as well. They can be raw or they can be cooked. It's entirely up to you, whichever you're happiest with. Stir away, making sure things don't stick to the bottom of the pan, which they almost always do. And let those cook through for about 4 or 5 minutes. All you're doing is just cooking the pork is the main thing, to cook that through and make sure it's properly cooked. It's no different to cooking pretty much any other pork dish. As I said before, if you don't like pork or you don't like prawns, then you can use anything you like. Indeed, if you wanted to, you could probably make a vegetarian version of this, using no meat in it at all. You might want to substitute something else for the meat, anything you like, use your imagination, beans, something like that. While those are cooking, I'm going to very quickly chop up the celery, the Chinese celery that I bought on the way here, and it doesn't have to be nice and fine and delicate and things like that. It just needs to be not very big. That's all we need there. And I think that's probably enough. You don't need to worry about stalks and such like. Throw them all in. Nothing wrong with that. There we go. I'm also going to chop up, if you're ever asked to do a cookery demonstration, don't do it under a tree, because you get leaves everywhere. I'm going to chop up some of this cabbage here. Chop this fairly finely because you don't want too many big bits in the mix. You want it to cook very quickly. Chop it like that. And that means it will cook quickly, and it should, if you try and chop the same thickness each time, it should cook quite evenly. I think that should be enough. I will turn it around and just slice that lot in half. That can go away. We can put all of that together in one bowl there. There we go. That's that done. Let's go back to the pan and make sure that everything here is cooking okay. The smell of the trazi, or the smell of the gapi, has now pretty much disappeared, which means I'm happy again. I know that the flavour is there, and that's important, that's good, but the smell has gone. Now, while that's fine, while that is cooking, we can unravel our noodles. Now, I'm sure that you people know much more about how to cook banh mi than I do. I have 2 lots of banh mi here. The one main hint about banh mi, I am told, don't do it over there because you get all this flour coming off, is that you need to shake it all apart into single strands if you can. Otherwise, you end up with something that looks like the Beijing Olympic Stadium, otherwise known as the bird's nest, and you don't want to end up with a bird's nest. I may have used too many here, but we'll try and see what happens. Now, I'm multifunctioning here. I'm doing 2 things at once. I'm just making sure that that's cooking okay. That's looking good. That's looking fine. Now, the other thing with banh mi to do is to wash it, to try and get rid of as much of that flour as possible. And if you see in the water there, you can see the flour coming off it very, very, in big quantities. The water's now gone completely opaque, it's gone white. So you want to do that. And now you have to start working quite fast. You can do either of the next 2 actions in either order. Number 1, there we have some lovely boiling water. Throw in the banh mi. Number 2, over here, we have our cabbage and our celery, and we want to add those to the pan, like that. And stir those in. Banh mi is cooking. It will be pretty much done already. We don't want to overdo it. This is where it would be advantageous, it would be a good thing to have a big wok rather than a slightly smaller frying pan. But this will have to do. You can see that the celery already is beginning to cook down. It will almost disappear in time. There we go. And then this banh mi can get drained. Get rid of as much of the water as possible because you don't want soggy banh mi, soggy noodles. And throw them in there. Another very quick hint. Do we have a fork somewhere? Bear with me 1 second. Thank you. A good idea to try and use a fork to try and separate some of the strands of noodles. It's virtually impossible to get them completely separate, and it's virtually impossible to distribute them evenly throughout the entire pan, but a fork does help in some ways. Now all you need to do is literally stir this around. We need at this stage very quickly to add the salt and pepper. Throw that in. Quite a lot of it, that's fine. Pepper is one of the foods of the gods. It's wonderful, wonderful stuff. In the West we almost invariably use black pepper, but a lot of people in the East use white pepper, which I've come to know and love and understand as a great, great addition to any meal. You can see what I mean, that unfortunately the noodles tend to stick slightly together. Let us now add a couple of tablespoons of soy sauce. That should be enough. And we can swizzle that round, and we are pretty much done. Now, we have a plate here. See if we can get some of the noodles. This always happens when I deal with noodles. Noodles and I are minorly disastrous. But if we can get enough noodles and other bits and pieces onto the plate, go on you go. Oops. And then pick us up there. This looks terrible. This is terrible. There we go. And the other bits to go with it. At the moment it doesn't look very beautiful. Let's see what we can do about making it look beautiful. Let's add some spring onions, like that. Let's add some cucumber, maybe some around the outside like that. It makes it look quite pretty. A couple more. And let's add some fried onions on top. Throw them on, they're lovely, they're very, very good. They taste quite delicious. And if you really want, you can go mad and add a little bit of the bright red trazi, the bright red sambal there. Dangerous. No, that doesn't look too bad, does it? Would anybody like to taste it? Sadly, at this point, I should be asking you in the audience to come and taste it. But you're behind me, you're not there. And so, would anybody else care to come? And we have volunteers. Any volunteers to come and taste this? It's amazing how people run away when you suggest they want to taste it. Would anybody care to come and taste it? Nobody wants to come and taste it. I will taste it myself. That'll do fine. Sure. Thank you. Oh. Would you? Oh look, Achan Gananek has arrived. Achan Gananek, would you like to try a little bit of that? I'd like to say at this point, Achan Gananek is a friend of mine. Don't be careful of the red stuff; it's dangerous. But just try a little bit. It's very difficult to eat, but it's very nice. There we go. We're nearly there. Well done. That's it. You're doing very well. It's a battle. It's an eternal battle. That's fine. Try that and see. At this stage you're supposed to say that tastes very nice. Good, lovely, excellent, that's what I wanted to see. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure, it's been fun doing it, in spite of the leaves from the trees and all the rest of it. And good luck with your paragraphs. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.